Hi everyone, Nicole Moore, Low Carb Keto Health dietitian here. Just popping in to talk about dairy. I get a lot of questions about dairy. Can we use it on a low carb keto program? Does it help with weight loss? Does it impact weight loss? So yeah, let's talk about dairy. So the first thing I think we need to consider with dairy is that depending on the dairy product, there are definitely different levels of carbohydrate. And we know when we're doing a low carb ketogenic diet that we actually are trying to keep our carbohydrates, depending on our health goals, anywhere initially between 20 and 50 grams of carbohydrate per day. We know that 4 grams of carbohydrate is equivalent to a teaspoon of sugar that will impact insulin. And we know in chronic disease, pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes and obesity, to name a few, is that insulin resistance is the root cause. And to ensure that we can manage insulin resistance, help people lose weight and put their chronic disease into remission, we need to minimize the amount of impactable sugar in our body. So reducing total carbohydrate to between 20 to 50 grams per day tends to help people lower their glucose and insulin and encourage their body to use ketones as their new fuel or petrol. So 20 to 50 grams is our target. So if we start to look at dairy, let's firstly talk about carbohydrate content and how that could be a factor in impacting our journey when we're trying to lose weight and improve our insulin sensitivity. So let's look at milk. And milk generally, depending on if it's full fat or skim, has between 12 to 14 grams of carbohydrate because milk contains lactose. And lactose basically breaks down to glucose and galactose. And glucose and galactose are basically sugars that will definitely impact our body's glucose levels, our blood sugar levels, our insulin levels. So if we're trying to keep our insulin sort of dormant and keep it low and encourage our body to become fat adapted and use fat as a fuel instead of needing sugar, then we do have to watch how much dairy we are consuming. And dairy is really important in terms of our health, bone strength, making sure we've got enough calcium to sort of keep our bones and our muscles strong and keeping our muscles contracting and very healthy. But we also have to consider, if we're trying to improve our metabolic health, how much dairy we are consuming. So milk is definitely a product, whether it's skim. In fact, skim milk will have less sugar than has more sugar than full cream milk because you've got less fat, more sugar. So generally we're talking 12 to 14 grams of natural lactose in milk, which, if 4 grams of carbohydrate is a teaspoon of sugar, is going to have some impact. Now, it really comes down to how much, and I guess if we're using a lot of milk and we're drinking 2 or 3 cups a day or having 4 lattes a day, then this definitely can be something you need to consider, how much milk you're having. So, if you're having a splash in your coffee, I'm sure that's fine, but if you are drinking quite a lot of milk, then you may need to really look at that as part of your total carbohydrate impact. So that's the milk story. Then let's look at yogurt, and yogurt tends to have less carbohydrate. Now we are talking about unsweetened yogurt, because if you go and get sweetened yogurt, you can be looking at up to 30 grams of carbohydrate or more, depending on the sweetened yogurt per serving, which is up to sort of 9 or 10 teaspoons of impactable sugar. So Greek natural yogurt, no added sugar yogurts, will sit in a serving, let's say 175 grams, which is sort of a small tub. That may be giving you between sort of 8 to 12 grams, around 8 to 9 grams of carbohydrate. So you're probably looking at a couple of teaspoons of impactable sugar in the blood. So it's certainly less than milk. So I always usually suggest that if you're, to keep your dairy intake balanced and get your calcium in, that you maybe limit how much milk you're having and incorporate a little bit more Greek yogurt into the picture. And then we look at cheese, and cheese is a lot higher in protein and fat, so you tend to get less carbohydrate in that. And so hard cheese, for example, or soft cheese, have varying amounts of fat and protein, but you're getting a lot less. So a brie, for example, or cheddar cheese will have anything between 1 and 4 grams of carbohydrate in a serving. So if we're going to try to minimize how much insulin we're producing and stabilize glucose and help improve insulin sensitivity, we need to consider the types of dairy that we're having. So if you are really struggling with your weight and your diabetes and your glucose, then I'm going to encourage people to sort of get a lot of their calcium from cheese and yogurt, and just be mindful of how much milk they are consuming. And there are other sources of calcium that you can also get on a low carb program that don't necessarily have to come from 3 cups of milk a day. So again, getting some yogurt in, unsweetened, good Greek yogurt, using cheese in your diet, nuts like almonds have got good calcium, green leafy veggies have good calcium, and particularly eating tinned fish with bones. So, making sure you're doing some tinned salmon or some tinned mackerel, and that's got those little sort of very soft bones in there. So crush it all up, with some great, full fat egg mayonnaise made with olive oil, and, try to include plenty of fish. Even sardines have got those really fine bones in there, and you can get up to sort of 300 milligrams of calcium having a sort of 100-gram serve of tinned fish with bones. And if you're sort of looking at the standard requirements for calcium as we get older, we're at least wanting sort of 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams. So getting some tinned fish in every day, maybe a snack on a keto cracker, having it with your lunch, maybe you're doing sardines on toast or some mackerel slices on toast, you can already get, 300 grams of your calcium. And then, going for a high calcium enriched yogurt, getting some nuts and some greens in, eating some cheese, you're going to start to really build a decent amount of calcium in your body by varying sources of calcium that don't require you to have high levels of sugar in your blood. So that's what I like to talk to my clients about when it comes to calcium intake and looking at carbohydrates, depending on how insulin resistant you are, which depends on how many metabolic issues you have. If you're quite overweight, you have high blood glucose or a high HbA1c, maybe you've got high triglycerides, high belly fat, you might have pre or type 2 diabetes, high blood fats, then I think varying the sources of dairy that you have is really, really important. And that if you're having all your dairy from lots and lots of milk all day, that you can definitely still have an impact on your health. And there are definitely also some studies that are showing a relationship, a significant relationship between increased dairy intake and worsening of insulin resistance. So some people, depending on their genes and their metabolic makeup, I do find dairy can actually have a negative impact on their wellness journey. So if I get someone that is doing all the right things and they're keeping their carbohydrates sort of between 20 to 50, but they're really struggling with their weight, then one of the things I actually look at, based on the fact there is definitely research showing a significant increase or worsening of insulin resistance with an increase in dairy, that those particular clients, I'm actually going to take dairy out of their diet temporarily to see if they actually get an improvement in their metabolic journey. So if they're doing everything right and they're not dropping weight, their blood sugars aren't coming down, then I give their body a rest of all dairy. So I take milk and I take cheese and I take yogurt out, and I ensure that they're getting their calcium needs through non-dairy sources. I may also suggest a calcium supplement. Now, if I'm going to suggest a calcium supplement, we really want to make sure that calcium is going to go into the bones. So it's really also important that people are on a good amount of vitamin D3, that I've got some magnesium going into their body, that I've also got vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is a really important vitamin to ensure that we're absorbing the calcium that we consume into our bones and not into our arteries. So particularly if I've got someone on a calcium supplement, I'm more careful with getting some MK7, vitamin K2 in. You can get vitamin K2 through supplement form, and the studies have definitely shown around 150 micrograms of vitamin K2 is really important for getting calcium absorption into the right spots, the bones, but also you can get it through natural sources, which is always encouraged. But vitamin K2 comes from fermented foods, such as natto beans. I think about 2 tablespoons of natto beans gives you 100% of the MK7 or vitamin K2 requirements. Also fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi help the gut produce vitamin K2, and animal or grass-fed animal product. So grass-fed butter and grass-fed meat and grass-fed offal and grass-fed dairy. We just don't tend to consume a lot of these products in the Australian diet, so therefore I often find a K2 supplement is also useful. So going back to the sort of studies that have shown some worsening of insulin resistance for some people with increased calcium or dairy intake, I will take people off and I'll see how they go. And I do see a lot of people do better. So it's really about looking at the individual to determine, where dairy fits in their journey. And if their journey isn't succeeding, then I will take it out and see how they go. And if they are actually getting results by taking dairy out, then I'll be mindful of getting that calcium in other forms. And we'll try introducing dairy a little bit later. The mechanisms behind this, there are a lot of sort of theories. There's definitely the research talking about that the milk protein in dairy can have some impact on the insulin receptors and create that sort of hyperinsulinemic response, that bread might do, whereas bread produces a lot of glucose in the blood and that creates a high amount of insulin. And if you've already got insulin resistance and you're producing a lot of insulin, which we know holds weight and gets tired and therefore makes our glucose control worse, and elevated glucose impacts cholesterol and damages it and causes inflammation and makes the body hold weight. So therefore there are some theories as to why maybe insulin is doing that, but at the end of the day it's observation, seeing how you're going, and removing dairy if you feel that you're doing all the right things and you feel stalled, and see what happens. Just make sure you get your calcium from other sources. And that's what we do here at Low Carb Keto Health. Everyone is an individual, and we really have to look at the journey and start to understand their body as an individual, which is partly why we often use CGMs on people, continuous glucose monitors, to see what foods might be spiking, because there are low carb foods that don't work well for everyone. So we use those tools, we use how people are feeling, we use their progress, we also use ketone monitors, because what sort of things might be taking us out of mild ketosis are an indicator that they're foods that might not be resonating well with our body. And sometimes they can be low carb foods that we have people consuming. So your journey is so individual, and it's really important to have a team around you that can help you on this journey and navigate the best low carb journey for you. Keep an eye on what's happening internally with your bloods, which is what our fabulous Dr. Laureen Lawless-Smith does here at our Low Carb Keto Health practice. So please get a really good team around you. Here at Low Carb Keto Health, we have our wonderful Dr. Laureen Lawless-Smith, myself, Nicole Moore, doing all things low carb from a nutritional perspective and individualizing your journey to suit your metabolic needs and your lifestyle needs. We also have our amazing health coaches here like Jodie Bund, and they're there to sort of really help bring all the pillars together and really support you and help you incorporate low carb into life. So there's many things we need to support us in this journey, and that's what we try to do here at Low Carb Keto Health, is support you mentally and physically with medical support and dietetic support. So please visit us here at Low Carb Keto Health. If you feel that you need more support in your journey, please check out our amazing low carb 12-week program, which really brings all the tools that you need to succeed on your low carb journey. And continue to follow us on Facebook and share us with any other low carb like-minded people, because the more that we can spread this message, the more that we can help people out there that are maybe struggling with the traditional sort of less calories in, more calories expended approach, which is simply not working for many people who are not metabolically well. So thanks for listening, and I hope that's given you a little bit more information about the dairy and how it fits in our low carb world. And I look forward to chatting to you again soon. Bye for now.